I hope you're ready for some illogic. Last time we went over a Week 6 battle against Mr. Quality and his Cincinnati Incineroar. Please go check that one out first if you have not done so already, as we went over the team preview and battle, in which, spoiler alert, the Buffalo Bouffalant clinched the number 1 overall seed with a convincing 5-0 victory. This time we'll be taking on Chad and his 3-3 Seattle Steamrollers. If John is not my draft league rival, then bad luck Chad certainly is. He finished second in Season 1, and then again in Seasons 2 and 3, both of those, of course, being my first 2 seasons in the league. I know he's got a bone to pick with me for preventing his potential championships, but perhaps we can give him our namesake if we have him lose in the finals for the 4th time in a row, as, of course, the Buffalo Bills infamously did too. As always, we'll be going over the team builder, a battle, and a post-game interview. Timestamps will be in the description. So this is an odd week for sure, as I don't really have that much to play for, but Chad definitely does. I know he wants to finish on the other side of the bracket for me, so he doesn't have to face me too early. The higher he can end up, the better. The only thing I have left, I suppose, is pride for both my record and my Pokemon's KDs. A perfect record going into the playoffs is tempting, as is showing Chad his place as second fiddle, so that's the sort of mindset I've got going into prep. Chad has access to Flygon, Jirachi, Kyurem's base form, Rotom-Wash, Chandelure. He's got Claydol and Butterfree as his 2 Dynamax targets, Cloyster, Clefable, and Rhyperior. His team is definitely tough, probably right around the level of Mr. Qualities from last week, and that these are probably the 2 best in the league right after mine. There are some very key differences, of course, the most notable being speed, with only base 100 at the top after exchanging Hawlucha for Jirachi a couple weeks ago. He has plenty of ways to surpass that, of course, with several excellent Scarf candidates and the potential to boost up with things like Shell Smash and Quiver Dance, among other things, such as the possibility of Trick Room, which he has also brought. He has plenty of bulk, too, between things like Wish, Clefable, and the natural bulkiness of things like Jirachi and Kyurem. It definitely seems like a team designed to set up the sweepers to go, so let's see what we can do to break it apart a little bit. As far as matchups go, Claydol I think is a poor start, despite getting a Rocks and Rapid Spin, due mostly to a lack of power and the ability for things like Scrafty or Kingler to just set up all over it. Rhyperior doesn't fare that much better, although it is certainly stronger. It also makes for a worse matchup against things like Seismitoad without offering the same utility or Dynamax potential as Claydol. The third ground type also isn't great here, as Flygon also struggles against the Levitators especially, with Weezing in particular known as a Flygon counter in the current UU. It also invites in things like Rotom, and if it ends up being Choice Locked, plenty of other answers. Although I am most certainly afraid of it, I admit that Jirachi also doesn't actually have that great of a matchup either. Between things like Dugtrio that outspeeds it, to common Scarfers outspeeding it, to several key Iron Head resists, and also a Scrafty that has a relatively easy time walling it and destroying it in return with a fat knockoff. Jirachi is obviously still a very good Pokemon, as are the ground types, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Jirachi in a ground type come, but I think the others have overall better matchups. To start them off, Kyurem is among the legal kill leaders, sporting the same +7 KD ratio as both my Aegislash and Kingler. It has ravaged multiple teams by itself, and even has a higher special attack compared to my Kyurem-Black, including a stronger Freeze Dry to zap things like Seismitoad. Rotom-Wash, as always, is a Rotom for me with a great matchup. It's a fantastic wall for both of my Dynamax options, and is only weak to Celebi and Freeze Dry as far as stabs go. A well-timed trick or status move would be devastating as well, especially if it catches out something like a natural check and Seismitoad. Butterfree is kind of an odd Pokemon, as it really only has one thing it can do. It puts something to sleep, Quiver Dances on the switch, and then tries to sweep. I can try to run something specifically for the sleep, but the natural answers of Shed Skin and Natural Cure are weak to its easy coverage moves. I may need to stack something to sleep in order to revenge kill it afterwards, which is seriously annoying when considering it can run things like Focus Sash or Dynamax up for more bulk and power. Clefable is an absolute pain to deal with. If its current usage, no, you didn't already prove that. It can easily heal up its team and is immune to the usual answers of wearing things down, by means of Toxic or Leech Seed and things of that nature. My team is either going to be able to smash through it or fail miserably to break through it, when more often than not, it's the latter. Speaking of breaking, the last 2 members of Chandelure and Cloyster are my picks for the scariest mons this week. Chandelure can have an easy Scarf slapped on and click buttons to win. Shadow Ball is nearly unresisted, and that enormous special attack set is very scary to deal with, especially with Fire Stab, which I have a tough time with, and other coverage options like Energy Ball and Trick. And Cloyster, of course, needs only click Shell Smash to win. If there is a positive, it's that the usual coverage may not cut it this time. Icicle Spear and Rock Blast aside, he would like to find room for a special water move, as well as Ice Shard, as well as maybe something for the Aegislash. He can only pick 3 of those things without even going into options like Teleport or Spikes. In my last league, I beat a Cloyster in the playoffs, but it was only through sheer dumb luck, critting it through screens, so I really need to be more aware of what it brings to the table and be prepared. despite the very good team that Chad has. I'm definitely proud to say that I would feel comfortable bringing any of my 10 team members to this one, as even the ones I'm leaving behind have plenty of merit. Excelgor, for example, it definitely has a place with its speed, grabbing a revenge kill decently often, outspeeding even some of the Scarfers like Chandelure. And spikes are pretty nice considering his overall poor removal. However, he does have quite a few floaters, and Clefable that's immune to the residual damage, and the damage output isn't quite there to justify bringing it. Seismitoad also looks pretty good, what with no grass types to worry about, but it isn't quite active or aggressive enough to deal with various things that may have coverage for it, such as Chandelure, or Butterfree, or Jirachi. Scrafty works well as a check for several key threats, like Jirachi and Chandelure, but doesn't do too much more in an active role on things that aren't already covered. Finally, I really wanted to bring Kingler, but I simply couldn't justify it. Aside from being my other Tier 5, Kingler also gets stopped cold by things like Rotom and Cloyster, making it an overall risky bring even with the decent stats. As for the 6 I'm bringing, well, I admittedly didn't take too much time to prep this one compared to some of the others I've done. Busy week, probably going to play him in playoffs later anyway, it's nothing really to play for, excuses. Anyways, Aegislash at +2 is an absolute menace, with Shadow Sneak taking care of most everything that is faster, and the ability to get behind a substitute forcing potentially suboptimal plays, while also maybe stalling out Dynamax, or easing the prediction game overall, should you just make an aggressive switch to something like Flygon or Rotom. I don't need much speed either, just an extra 4 for mid-speed Clefable, to help me be as bulky as possible with that HP. Next up is going to be Kyurem. At +2, he outspeeds and one-hit KOs the entire team. I'm not exaggerating. Clefable is, of course, the only issue with Unaware, and is the main switch in general, so getting to +1 would be crucial for that with Iron Head, as well as +1 Fusion Bolt OHKOing Chandelure with a Life Orb boost. Simple and straightforward. Brutally so, just as you expect from a Kyurem. Next up is going to be a defensive Celebi with Rocks, Recover, U-Turn, and Future Sight. Rocks are so good in this match. Recover can let me stay in on some moves, scout out some damage. U-Turn is incredible momentum in this matchup, and I've really come to love Future Sight as an option. To go into little detail, it forces out specific mons to take hits, which means I can Future Sight, U-Turn out, and go to a particular response from my opponent based on a screwed if you do, screwed if you don't approach. In this case, let's say I U-Turn out to, say, Aegislash. He can obviously go Jirachi to try to eat up the Future Sight with ease, but then I can hit him with a Ghost move and proceed from there. He may instead wish to eat up the Aegislash hit, maybe expecting a Shadow Sneak or something with, I don't know, say Rhyperior, but then that's going to get smacked by the Future Sight. It forces uncomfortable situations that can make things pretty fun. Cool move in Draft League, that's for sure, where I'm trying to force certain mons down low. Rotom has come every single week, the only mon, and it's understandable, as you can see how effective this simple set can be. It very much needs Defog, just in case. Otherwise, Volt switch around. Overheat's pretty nice to threaten things like Jirachi and otherwise do just good damage. And Will-O-Wisp threatens the ground types that may wish to switch in, especially Rhyperior. It outspeeds Chandelure first as well, and discover if it's Scarfed, and Volt switch around on that, since it can be immune to half my moves with Flash Fire. Next up, Rockefeller is fully specially defensive with 3 attacks and Toxic Spikes. The stab moves carry it pretty far, with Shadow Ball covering Jirachi and Chandelure that resist the stab moves and are the easy switch-ins. Actually, pretty nice in an offensive sense, to be honest. Toxic Spikes is really interesting too, as it is a great status for everything that can be affected by it. He has no poison types to absorb it either, so it forces Defog on his side at some point. Fully specially defensive should help against things like Rotom, Chandelure, Clefable, even Butterfree if it doesn't carry the Psychic. And finally, Alolan Dugtrio actually works very well this week with a Choice Scarf. I almost wish I hadn't revealed this quite yet with how good it is. With a Scarf that outspeeds the common Scarf mons you could have, like Chandelure and Jirachi, as well as a +2 Cloyster and a +2 Butterfree by exactly 1 point. Pretty cool, to be honest, giving it use outside of Dynamax with stab moves, and of course the Rock move for Butterfree. Toxic could be used to catch something like Rhyperior or Rotom or Flygon or Cloyster, the easy switch-ins to this thing. It's frail and really not that strong, but I'm confident it'll have some kind of use. It's the final week, so let's show off the mon that hasn't done anything yet. Getting into the battle proper, I see one of the ground types did come in Rhyperior, while we're also missing Chandelure and Cloyster, strangely enough. The others are fine, and the lack of these mons eases up some pressure off my other guys. Rotom may be a pretty standard lead to Volt switch around or get a burn on the Rhyperior, but I want my rocks up quickly and forcing that Rotom so things like Dugtrio can have a better time or matchup overall, so I think my lead will be the Celebi, as he's actually going to lead with Butterfree, which is a pretty awkward turn 1. This is pretty strange overall, but I suppose it would make sense for him to want to sleep something right away. This means I could also end up beating Attack, which would be no bueno, considering it's bug typing. I also know that Bug isn't all that great of a type for attacking my team outside of Celebi, so I think maybe about the worst that could happen is a Hurricane. That aside, since I really do fear setup, there's about a 0% chance he Sleep Powders from a Grass type, I'm just going to U-turn. But there is a catch, as he does Sleep Powder on turn 1. My U-turn gets a little tiny bit of chip when I go out to the Rotom. So, he is Scarf. He is a Scarf Butterfree. He wanted to try and scare me out and catch me off guard with a Scarfed Sleep Powder, showing a very interesting way to deal with some of the possible checks like Rotom or Kyurem by simply outspeeding them and putting them to sleep. I do know now that it cannot set up, and I just go into Rotom, trying to perhaps bluff the Scarf here to force Butterfree out. It's definitely not taking a Volt Switch all that easily. I got super awkward turn there, and this also is pretty awkward. If I do stay in and he Sleep Powders, I really can't risk that. So I think maybe it's best switch into something like Rhyperior. It's pretty safe just to go back out into Celebi. We see he's going to go into the Pink Menace Clefable, and Pink Menace it indeed is, as I'm going to go ahead and set up Rocks, but it's also going to set up in its own way with a Calm Mind right away. This is starting to get a little scary. I don't really have a way to hurt this thing, so I'm just going to have to risk a little bit. Go for a U-turn, and I figure that Aegislash can take hits relatively well here. But he makes a great play and Thunder Waves me right away. Here on turn 4, my Aegislash has already taken Thunder Wave. I don't have Heal Bell or Aromatherapy this week. So he knew I couldn't really stay in. Paralyzed one of my best mons. One of my best answers to Clefable in general, which is pretty brutal. And he's going to follow that up with a Flamethrower too, doing a 58%. As Ironhead does at least do quite a good chunk, 70%. It reveals that he is not leftovers. This thing is getting pretty close to useless, I think. So I have to anticipate another Flamethrower to come. So I think a decent middle ground play here is Weezing, as he does in fact Flamethrower. Only does 36%, which is pretty nice. The last move is either going to be Recovery or Moonblast. He shows it to be Recovery as I get up another layer of Toxic Spikes. Maybe I'm just not sure. Maybe I'm not taking seriously the threat that is in front of me. There's no fairy move on this thing, just Flamethrower. Flamethrower might still just sweep my team on its own. We're suddenly in a crit war here as he gets a Calm Mind up and Sludge Wave's only doing 27%. Really wishing that was Clear Smog right about now, but I guess that's just how it's going to go, right? So we can see that we're in Speed type. Poison does absolutely nothing. I'm kind of in a losing battle here, as that's the most I can do. Thunder Wave also means that I'm going to have that to contend with. However, it's low enough that I can anticipate a Soft Boiled and bring in my Kyurem-Black, which may seem a little bit odd choice here, considering it's not Choice Banded or Ironhead isn't going to O-Code or anything. But I really just need to make sure that it's low at the end of whatever encounter I have with this thing. Dugtrio can't really risk switching in. It still has a lot of work that it can put in, and if I can scare him out with Kyurem, then that's all the better. So I think Kyurem just makes the most sense for me trying to break through with a bit of force. Ironhead is going to do about 2/3 of its health, which is pretty nice. Flamethrower will bring me down relatively low, but I've hopefully shown him this thing is not here to play around. I've also seen, based on that damage, how defensive it is, and I know that a Fusion Bolt can still take it out, so that's a relatively safe play. And I actually catch the Rotom with Rocks, and the Fusion Bolt end up doing over 2/3 of its health, which is pretty amazing. There's something about Water type switching in on this thing. I don't think Fusion Bolt's coming. I'm not sure there. He does reveal lefties too, so he's not Scarfed. I outspeed him. I want to get rid of this thing, so I'm just going to Fusion Bolt again, hopefully prevent a defog. And he actually goes into Jirachi, interestingly enough. Takes another 60% overall of this thing's health too. Kyurem is successfully breaking right now. Even if I haven't punched through a hole in his team, this was very important. His Aegislash definitely can't do that kind of thing right now. My side is starting to succumb to that yellow magic. So Kyurem very clearly still has some use left, and whether this thing is Scarfed or not, it can still outspeed me. So I want to go for a relatively safe middle ground, go into the Celebi, as he does U-turn out and does quite a bit of damage, showing that he is physically offensive, and he goes into a Kyurem, which actually, by the time it gets to his turn, I'll be up to 42%. He's down to 63 from Rocks and Poison. Definitely should have brought Boots there, I think. So, in my mind, the most common sets for this to watch out for are going to be the Specs and Scarf sets. I can find out if it's one of those right here. I'm going to go for Recover, because if he outspeeds me, he's Scarf, and I can deal with it appropriately. If he still KOs me after my recovery, after the boost in health, he Specs, and if anything else happens, I hang on, get some Poison Chip, and I can U-turn out. So it's a gamble with my Celebi's life for sure, but I think I have to take the time to figure out what exactly he is. So I'm going to recover up here, outspeed, and he shows that he is Dragon Dance, interestingly enough, and I am suddenly scrambling to find out what moves Kyurem gets. You'd think I would know a little bit better, considering I have a Kyurem of my own, but I'm still just not quite sure which moves he's going to have. Celebi's up back at full. Kyurem is down to half, and I can anticipate that he's not going to be able to OHKO me. So on the anticipated Roost, I'm just going to U-turn out into the Weezing, which seems like a relatively safe play, and it gets it back up to nearly full as well, and Kyurem is still suffering from the poison. Weezing doesn't really have that much to do here. It is paralyzed, but also has a naturally high defense stat, can definitely help with a strong Strange Steam, so it should do just fine, I think. He's going to Dragon Dance up again here, and Strange Steam plus poison damage brings him dangerously low, which I know is going to force a Roost the next turn. If we're playing the Yellow Magic game, he's going to move first thanks to, yeah, that was a Quick Claw. Definitely should have been Boots. Either way, though, he gets lucky with the Paralysis, saving the life of Kyurem for now. Another Strange Steam after Roost brings him somewhat low, and we are playing the dangerous game yet again. So what's going to happen first? Am I going to crit? Am I going to confuse? Is he going to crit? What exactly do we think is going to happen here? He decides he's just going to go for it. Icicle Spear hits once, twice, 3 times, and that's all. Thankfully, I don't get paralyzed or get through the magic, and I'm able to take him out. So turn 21, we get the first KO of the match. Neither of his Pokemon that set up to +2/+2 got kills, which is honestly pretty impressive to me. Dugtrio-Wincon is actually starting to look pretty nice here. My Kyurem still breaks through plenty of his team, aside from the Rhyperior, which is also the main concern for my Dugtrio at this point. So it's looking overall pretty good, and I think I agree with his switch in here of going into Rotom, as he's just going to go for a Defog, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. I do break through the Yellow Magic, but he does actually survive the Sludge Wave. He shows himself to be fully HP and special defense invested. As my recovery item and his recovery item going off. And I'm also max as HP and special defense, so strangely enough, it's helping me out too, and I'm able to claim a second KO with the Weezing, and he's going to go into Clefable. So, yeah, this has been a pleasant surprise how good Weezing has been all season, and I will definitely take Weezing getting a couple of kills while paralyzed as well. It's been pretty nice, but unfortunately, of course, it does allow the Clefable and Freely to heal up, and I unfortunately will not be able to get damage off as I am paralyzed yet again. So he's going to be able to calm Mind up again a little bit. It's getting a little tough. It's amazing how Chad got both of the 2 most annoying tier 1s that I absolutely hate to lose to. Again, Clear Smog, which sounds pretty nice right now, so we're going to have to settle for this. He's just waiting for the Yellow Magic to go off, and he's just going to finish me off thanks to the Life Orb boost on Flamethrower. Maybe could have sacked up the Aegislash, but Weezing wasn't doing much anyway. This may seem a little strange to bring in the Kyurem here, but once again, I kind of explained my reasoning earlier that although this thing could possibly break through a little bit more, I've seen the Scarf on Butterfree, I've seen the Scarf on Jirachi, like this thing isn't going to be breaking that much more, and I think this is the best immediate damage that I can get off right here, right now, so I just really need to get damage through here, and Iron Head will hit it hard, and unfortunately I do not get a flinch, and for the first time all season, Kyurem-Black is going to go down. So I need to be able to force it out right now, as I said before, so Alolan Dugtrio is going to have to be the switch. It's making its first appearance all season, actually, but will force out the Clefable and force this thing to eat up an Iron Head, which it does with relative ease, and with Leftovers Recovery helping that as well. However, with Rhyperior, I have a relatively easy switch in with Celebi, so Earthquake is going to be eaten up as well. So I'm actually in a pretty nice spot. This is the spot that I mentioned in the team builder that I really like having Celebi in. Rocks aren't doing that much for me. Obviously, Butterfree could come in, but I don't have that much better to do here than to just click a Future Sight. So something I'm kind of forcing his hand a little bit here, depending on what exactly he wants to go into or do. I cut the Dynamax short. Yeah, I have some options here, which is pretty nice. And knowing that he outspeeds you, I'm just going to go into my Aegislash to potentially eat up the Sleep Powder as he goes for Shadow Ball, which is really nice tech coverage there. So once again, Future Sight's going to hit this turn. I need to decide what exactly I'm going to do. He could go into his Jirachi, but I don't think he's going to pass up a chance to kill this. In retrospect, maybe I should have just gone for a Shadow Sneak either way. but he's just going to Dynamax here and take me out with the Max Phantasm, as for the first time all season, Aegislash also goes down. But he also takes a crit on the Future Sight, bringing him down very low. It is still a Butterfree, Dynamax or not, so it's still very fragile. This does put me in a really nice spot, though, as once again I'm fighting a Dynamax that Rotom can come in on and easily Volt Switch. And remember that also the Choice Scarf will not take effect while he is Dynamaxed. So with that, I'm able to get an easy Volt Switch out and pick up KOs. We're down to 3-3. But I can go into the Alola Dugtrio, so check this play out, okay? Check this out. So Dugtrio comes in here. He cannot go Clefable, which is a really big thing for me, right? I cannot let the Clefable heal up again. It's already so tough to break through. And if it starts Calm Minding up again, I don't really have a shot. If he goes Rhyperior, I can still swap into Celebi, but this is the one that I really want. He goes the Jirachi here. So earlier I anticipated him to be the sort of classic Scarf set, which I still think is likely, especially considering that he swapped this in on a Pokemon it's naturally faster than. But however, I rather switched in on, Dugtrio is naturally faster than it, so in order to switch in, he's going to think that he's faster, or he's trying to make me think that he doesn't have a Scarf, which is pretty silly here. So I'm actually able to catch him off guard here and grab an Earthquake KO on the Jirachi with ease. So that was a pretty cool play. They're pretty cool. Able to take that thing down and get him back down to just 2 Pokemon. I think he was going to go for a Fire Punch potentially there, or maybe even a Healing Wish, which would have been pretty terrible, as healing up the Clefable. That would have been tough to punch through that. The Scarf caught him off guard, so what are the odds we both brought Scarf's Tier 5 Mons? Pretty nice, pretty nice. Huge swing in momentum from the Brady Bunch, and Rhyperior is going to come in, so that it can, of course, do its pitiful damage onto Celebi. That's what it was here to do, right? Once again, I love the ability to just click Future Sight here. Nothing really wants to take that right now, as he misses the Toxic here. I don't really see much of a reason to stay in anyways, so like Natural Cure would have just gotten rid of the poison. I don't think it was a terribly big miss in any way. In any case, I am setting up my endgame here, and I don't want to go for a U-turn here. I don't want to mispredict an Earthquake, so I go for a strange-looking play in Rocks. And let me explain this reasoning just a little bit here. So I need to U-turn the following turn to go to the appropriate answer to what he's eating the Future Sight with. If he stayed in with the Rhyperior, I'm not going to get hurt by anything. It's not like he's going to do much of anything. If he stays in again, I don't mind risking something like the Rotom the next turn, and I'm going to decide how to go from there as he gets very low. On the U-turn, that is, if he stays in on that on the next turn. If he goes into Clefable, though, which he has done, he is forced to Soft-Boiled or switch back, lest the Future Sight kill him. And if he switches back, Rhyperior is now in range of the Dugtrio, which I'm going to U-turn into. If he stays in, he has to recover. So this time I can very easily U-turn into the Dugtrio, not risking a Flamethrower, because he will die to the Future Sight otherwise. And it's going to bring him down to 39%. He only recovered a total of 7% on that turn. So I think this may actually be a best case scenario. Let's get Dugtrio out on the field for free. He knows he needs to preserve Clefable for the win, but that means that I got a free hit off on the Rhyperior. And I don't know if you know this is my Tier 5 Mon, so it does have the ability to Dynamax, and it's going to do over half of his health with the Max Steel Spike too. Additionally too, it raises my defense, so even if he was able to tank a hit, or let's say he just sacked off the Clefable first, I would be at +2 defense by the time the Rhyperior got to attack me, and you would have to crit to get through it, and at that point you have to contend with things like a Will-O-Wisp from Rotom and a Celebi, which he's really not touching and just hitting him with Future Sights. So that's going to be a GG right there. Dugtrio coming through with the final 3 kills this season in its first real appearance. That's going to secure us the #1 overall seed, a perfect regular season record, a stupid differential of +32, which means I only took 10 KOs all season. My kills were incredibly spread out, though, all season, as Kingler and Aegislash only finished with 7 each as my team leaders, with, strangely enough, Weezing coming in next with 6. Kingler tied with Charizard for best KD in the league, Charizard at 10-3, and Kingler at 7-0. So after the Weezing with 6, Kyurem and Seismitoad had 5 kills, Scrafty and Dugtrio each finished at 3-0, no deaths for either, and getting all their kills at the same time in endgame cleanups. The Tier 2's Rotom and Celebi were at 2-2 and 2-1. Their roles were definitely not sweeping, but as pivots and getting into the real cleaners and breakers. And Excelgor did still get a crucial weak 1 kill on Corviknight. He provided real threatening support with spikes and its blistering speed, so I can't really fault it at all. Rotom was the only thing to attend every single game, with the Tier 1s and Weezing coming all but once. Celebi and Toad came to a majority of games at 4, and Scrafty came 3 times with the Tier 5s, and Excelgor each coming twice. I plan on going over everything much more in depth in the postseason wrap-up, but next will come the playoffs. We've got a week break before starting them up, and I will be applying for a new league to try and keep up the Draft League content, so please keep an eye out for the second league possibly starting up soon. Don't know who the first round opponent is yet. We've got two possible options between either the Blessed Walreins or the Close Combat Club. So for now, let's wrap up the season with the post-game interview with Chad. Okay, we're here with the coach of the Seattle Steamrollers. Chad, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Been a busy day, but we were able to fit this battle in, and I had a lot of fun with it. So,
yeah, no, I really liked it too. This was probably one of the most fun battles I had. I was a little nervous coming in because I think I had a pretty bad team matchup, but overall I'm happy with how I did. So.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, only the person to finish 3-0 against me at least there, so. And I know there's a chance for playing in the playoffs, so I don't know if we revealed everything to each other, but this was very fun nonetheless. So we're just going to go over the team that you brought here real quick. You see the Rotom-Wash, Jirachi, Kyurem, Rhyperior, Clefable, and of course G-Max Butterfree. So first thing I want to talk about, of course, is the Butterfree. We just so happen to both bring Scarf Tier 5 Mons, which is absolutely hilarious. And that Shadow Ball definitely caught me off guard too. Maybe didn't do enough prep on that, but Butterfree came in pretty clutch.
Yeah, no. So I was really worried about Aegislash. Like, I maybe this is a given, but like I think the two biggest threats on your team were Aegislash and Kyurem.
Mm-hmm.
And with Kyurem, I think it was just a matter of not letting it set up, which is at least something that I can imagine doing. Like if Kyurem got set up, it would have been a really bad time for me. But the problem with Aegislash was nothing on my team really broke through it. So like kind of the idea with Butterfree is I was planning on leading Butterfree unless I had a really compelling reason not to. And then just like Scarf Sleep Powdering, and hopefully to knock something out. I was actually really hoping that you would do switch Aegislash in on it, and then that would.
That was a very risky turn one for me.
Yeah.
Could have gone south very quickly.
Yeah, and then the Shadow Ball is obviously for Aegislash. The Energy Ball I brought for you had a couple Pokemon that were weak to grass.
Definitely the Toad.
Yeah, which you didn't happen to bring, but overall I think that was a good choice. And I was actually debating between Hurricane and Bug Buzz. Overall, because Bug Buzz has a really good secondary effect with the G-Max Butterfree, where it has status.
Yeah, this
but
one's
Hurricane
just aesthetic. They're picking the G-Max.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Hurricane was just a little stronger, and I think it had slightly better coverage versus your team, which is why I ended up picking it.
And even just getting the extra speed just in case would be pretty nice there. No Quiver Dance is interesting, but that's what you got. That's what you have to get whenever you put Choice Scarf on it.
Yeah.
So next up, I know you had 3 ground types. The one that you chose to brought was Rhyperior. With those Stealth Rocks, and very specially bulky as well, I see, too. A lot of special bulk on your team this week.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a pretty standard Rhyperior utility set. The only thing that was a little weird was, like, some people run Swords Dance instead of Toxic. The thing is I just kind of noticed earlier in the league I wasn't really bringing any Stealth Rockers, and I think people kind of underrate Stealth Rock, especially in this gen with heavy-duty boots. But still,
that's like, so weird to say. Having started off in Gen 4, hearing people underestimate Stealth Rock, whoa, how far we've come.
Yeah, but I mean, I've honestly been kind of unimpressed with how my Rhyperior is done, so I was a little on the fence about bringing it. But I think overall this is a decent utility set, and like I feel like the thing with Stealth Rock is one of your Pokemon, if you bring Stealth Rock, is going to be less useful than it would bring. Like, it would be less useful by itself than, say, if I brought, like, Dual Dance Rhyperior. But I felt like Stealth Rock would be worth it. And, Earthquake had, I think, pretty decent coverage versus your team, especially versus big threats like Aegislash, and also could potentially deal with Dugtrio. So
True, yeah. And I normally talk about it at the end, but the other 2 ground types were the Claydol and Flygon, and you elected to bring neither of those. I actually do definitely agree that Rhyperior was the one to bring out of those. Butterfree was definitely scarier as a tier 5 overall, and Flygon, it just seemed like it got shut down by a few options. I don't know if you play UU at all, but Weezing is actually like the most common answer to Flygon. It's an absolute classic check there. So Rhyperior probably the one with the most utility, and like you said, the Stealth Rocks to go with it.
Yeah, Flygon doesn't have Stealth Rocks, which I think is kind of weird because I'm pretty sure it used to. I could be mistaken on that, but
I don't think so. But it gets Defog, so I don't know. It gets some wonky coverage for sure.
Yeah.
So next, the Rotom. I am a huge fan of all of the Rotom forms. So always love to see these things do well. As this is pretty much the set that I would say a Volt Switch, the coverage move of its typing. And then you get to pick like a status move, defog, nasty plot. Like it's super simple, but it works so well.
Yeah, no, I was debating on the status move. I was debating between like the obvious options for Rotom are Thunder Wave or Will-O-Wisp. I mean, some people bring Toxic, but
you already had the Toxic on the Rhyperior, so.
I had historically, I was bringing Will-O-Wisp most of the season, and I really felt like one of the things that my team has struggled with is speed control. And I was just really hoping that you would not bring Heal Bell on your Celebi, and that I could just kind of Thunder Wave a few of your Pokemon, which is sort of what happened. I did miss out on a Thunder Wave on Kyurem, which I think would have helped a lot, but that was perhaps a misplay, but I don't know. Given the information I had, would I have done differently?
It would have been pretty risky anyways, too. Yeah, so big fan of Rotom. Also, my younger brother here, Kyurem, and we saw the Quick Claw activate a very random time there. I know we were discussing during the battle, too, how much nice it may have been to have boots on this thing rather than the Quick Claw. But I admit I did not think about Dragon Dance for regular Kyurem form, not with Icicle Spear and Shadow Claw. Ice and Ghost, that's pretty good coverage for the team overall, though, isn't it?
Yeah, so Icicle Spear had pretty good coverage in general, and then Shadow Claw was just for Aegislash. I kind of like Roost because, I mean, like, obviously you could bring another stab move or coverage move, but Dragon wasn't really a good stab versus your team. Sure. And Kyurem actually has pretty poor physical coverage moves, so I felt like Roost would have been helpful. So I brought the Quick Claw kind of as a meme because it's the last match of the season.
Absolutely.
And also, the idea was, you know, like, if your Kyurem got set up, I would have a chance of countering, like, it's basically a chance of speed control if everything kind of
falls apart. Falls apart.
Which, like, looking back, honestly, I didn't even consider heavy duty boots because I haven't played a lot of Pokemon this gen besides this draft league.
Sure.
And looking back, heavy duty boots would have been kind of a clear, better option. But Quick Claw is kind of a meme, and it wasn't like I brought it for no reason. So
sure, and we still got to see it activate. So it made me laugh, and I think that's what's worth it. See the Jirachi with Choice Scarf, relatively standard. The Fire Punch is in there, though. Once again, I'm sure for Aegislash.
Yeah, that was for Aegislash. I probably wouldn't have I would have never switched a Jirachi on your Aegislash, but if I was predicting a switch in or something, Fire Punch would have been at least a half a decent coverage move. It also hit Dugtrio, which would have been useful if you were Choice Scarf.
Yeah, I am just sick of losing to flinching mons like Jirachi and Togekiss, so any trick I've got, you know.
Yeah, and then Healing Wish. The idea was I felt that that Clefable had a really good matchup versus your team. Besides, the idea with Clefable for me was Clefable was what I was expecting to do really well to kind of sweep. And the idea was I would kind of paralyze a lot of the fast mons for speed control. And Clefable actually lives relatively well. Like, it'll at least live a hit of like a stab, steel move or whatever. So the idea was I would, bring Clefable in, and then later in the match I could Healing Wish it back up and hopefully clean up after. You would think, oh, it's at 30%, I can just kill it, no big deal.
Right.
But then it would be back at 100 to maybe set up a Calm Mind and do something.
And that is the last one here to talk about, the dreaded Pink Blob Clefable with 1.60% usage in OU, and not even running a Mood Blast. Were you just not afraid of my Scrafty, or?
So I was concerned about your Scrafty, but I felt like there wasn't a situation where you would ever switch your Scrafty in on my Clefable.
Sure, and I felt not until I knew the full moves, right?
Yeah, and Clefable still walled it reasonably well, and it's not like, sure, Moonblast would have OHKO'd it, no setup or anything, but once I got a couple Calm Minds, Flamethrower would have done more damage. And also, I feel like the coverage moves on it were really helpful. Like, Thunder Wave is really useful. Like, we saw that if I had gone for Thunder Wave versus your Kyurem, that would have been a really clutch move.
Pretty much put the Aegislash out of commission by itself, so.
Yeah. And the Flamethrower was, again, it was like the specific reason I brought it was for Aegislash, but it also had decent coverage versus your team. The mon that it obviously didn't have coverage against was Rotom-Heat, but unless that ran Nasty Plot, Clefable just hard-walled it. Right. So, and even if it did run Nasty Plot, I could have just set up Calm Minds to plus whatever and soft-boiled it.
Yeah, so the only other two mons here that did not show up were the two I was actually most afraid of the pregame, which were Chandelure and Cloyster. We want to talk about why those didn't come.
Yeah, so Chandelure had a pretty obvious reason not to come for me, and that was, again, Aegislash. So Chandelure is a great Choice Scarfer. You can run Infiltrator, you can go through substitutes, and that would have been really helpful versus Aegislash. Unfortunately, Aegislash has a priority ghost move.
And it's one of those weird situations where, he's not going to bring it because I have this. Well, if I don't bring it, I should probably just bring it.
Yeah.
Weird little mind game we can have there.
So, and I mean, Chandelure, I feel like I was also trying to be a little unpredictable with my sets versus you, because I'm sure you've seen. Because like I feel like my team's been relatively consistent throughout the season, besides like a really out there Trick Room set,
which was fun.
Yeah, which was fun. Actually, I think the Trick Room thing was relatively good. I might bring that again sometime, but yeah, the Chandler is really predictable, and it was good for his your team, but the Shadow Sneak really if Aegis didn't get Shadow Sneak, I would have certainly brought it, but it was just that was too much for me to deal with. And then for Cloyster, I strongly considered bringing Cloyster. I was actually thinking of possibly bringing it instead of Butterfree. The reason I didn't was maybe I was over preparing for Aegislash, but like I felt Aegislash just hard walled it, and also Cloyster is really predictable. Actually, I thought about bringing a special Cloyster.
Yep, definitely was concerned about it, even just like bringing Surf or Hydro Pump or something on it.
Yeah, but it has really bad special coverage moves. Like it basically you have like Surf and Ice Beam, and I think that's pretty much it. It might have. But it was predictable, and like the thing I could have brought in instead of was maybe Rhyperior, but I felt like Stealth Rock was important. I don't remember if I set it up. I don't think I even did, but I don't know. I really don't like not bringing Stealth Rock, because then it lets like I don't know if it was necessarily an issue versus you, but it just like lets people get away unpunished for doing things like like bringing a Charizard or something like that.
Yeah, even just forcing the opponent to defog, taking up a turn to do that is still pretty valuable.
Yeah, and I mean Cloyster can also Stealth Rock, but I feel like it's much less physically bulky, and if I like wasted a turn to set up Stealth Rock, it would probably get hit by whatever coverage move.
I kind of regret Cloyster getting Shell Smash, because I really like Cloyster for its physical bulk, but now that it has Shell Smash, like why would you ever run any other set?
Yeah. But I don't know. I think my team did relatively well. I think I could have won. Like obviously, like I don't think it was a situation where your team like 100% beat mine.
Right. So, I think Boots on Kyurem would have gone a long way too. That would have been a lot tougher to get past, I think.
Boots on Kyurem. I think I possibly misplayed my Kyurem. I didn't consider Choice Scarf on Dugtrio, which was probably a mistake. And then like I feel like the biggest bad it's not really a misplay, but if I could if I had a time machine, I would probably Thunderwave your Kyurem but I didn't know it didn't have substitute.
Right.
But still, looking back at it, I think Thunderwave your Kyurem would have been a relatively low risk move, because even if it set up a sub, I could have just I could have broken it. But
there's a little risk in case I would Dragon Dance, and then Iron Head. I don't know if it would have O-Could, but would have been pretty close though.
Oh yeah, no, I mean obviously.
I understand the play though for sure.
Hindsight's 2020. So.
So any other comments before we wrap things up here?
Not really. Yeah, I was actually really the one Pokemon I didn't prepare like a super ton for this, but the one Pokemon I was really worried about that you didn't bring was I forget what it's called. It's the really fast bug one that
Excelgor.
Yeah, Excelgor.
Yeah.
Because I was worried, I would get my Clefable set up, your whole team would be paralyzed or whatever, and then it would just be like Final Gambit. And
set amount of HP.
So
love that thing. I thought just about everything on my team was viable for play this week, which is I think speaks into me having an overall good matchup against you, and the fact that you brought it to 3-0 and that close to winning, I think speaks volumes to your play overall. So
yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a fun match. Looking forward to hopefully fighting you in the.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to play the finals for the third season in a row, but there's a pretty darn good chance we'll play each other again in the second round. We should have come to that. So thanks for the battle, thanks for the interview, and next time we should be going over week 1 of the playoffs, and that's yet to be determined, so we will find out in that video.